What's up, my friends? Christian Nix here, also known as Barefoot Doctor. In this video, I want to talk to you about the system of ancient medicine and show you by demonstration exactly why it's so superior or so much more helpful for the average person dealing with any kind of chronic condition, specifically chronic digestive illness, mostly because chronic digestive illness is the root of maybe not 100% of all the possible chronic conditions out there, but that it's very clearly the driving factor behind, it doesn't matter what it is, joint pain, cognitive decline, poor sleep, anything from physical degeneration, like maybe even neuromuscular degenerative diseases, all the way through to your brain function, et cetera, et cetera. All of that is going to have the big one, diabetes, right? Metabolic illness is obviously related to your digestive function. Almost anything you can cite as a common chronic condition has at its root a digestive dysfunction or dysregulation that is driving some portion of your symptomology. If you fix the digestive portion of your chronic condition, you find that you can and will recover. Your body knows how to recover on its own. So I want to show you in this video how I discovered and then put together in a very simple way that anybody can use the valuable information that is contained within this ancient medical system. Obviously, for most people to even consider that there's another form of medicine other than the modern mainstream medical system is a big, big leap of faith. But the reality is that modern mainstream medicine is largely the result of the last 100 to 120, 150 years, depending on where you want to mark it, either with Pasteur's germ theory or with the so-called Flexner Report, which was a report sponsored by the Carnegie Foundation, driven by the Rockefellers, that was put together to decide what is and is not legitimate medical practice. This took place in the early 20th century, and it was largely responsible for the rise of the tremendous overpowering medical system that we have today that we call mainstream medicine. It is one way of looking at the body. In other videos, I talk about the reductionist epistemology, the reductionist thought process that says, oh, real medicine is based on reducing physical matter to tinier and tinier particles down to the cellular, molecular, biological level, and then treating illness at that level, right? Where you're making sense of reality at a very microscopic level of physical reality. It's tremendously powerful, but it has a lot of drawbacks too. The primary drawback is it's mostly geared for treating real emergency conditions. Could be trauma, could be an emergency like a trauma to the body, or serious illness like you have a heart attack, right? Well, we can treat that at the molecular level. Like if you can get people to medical care quickly enough, you can save people's lives. That's a tremendous innovation. Cancers of all kinds, obviously you can zap tissues or burn it out with chemotherapeutic agents. So you can treat the body at that level. What's the problem with that? It's not good at treating chronic illness. In fact, it's probably the worst system that you could use to treat a chronic condition. Why? If you enjoy this channel and benefit from learning about ancient medicine and how it can help people with modern chronic conditions like yours, then you'll love my new book, The Patient Empowerment and Self-Care Manifesto. There's 112 pages of simple, easy-to-understand wisdom from ancient medicine with its elegant system of pattern diagnosis for helping regular people understand the exact root causes of hundreds of chronic conditions, the exact chronic conditions modern medicine cannot help you with. You'll also discover what steps you need to take to reclaim your sovereignty over your health and your recovery. In it, I delve deep into the 4 areas that affect your body's ability to recover from a chronic condition: diet, targeted exercises, state of mind practices, and simple remedies and treatments anyone can use, and which specific steps you need to take in what order if you want to activate and control your body's own self-healing resources. I promise you, this book is unlike anything you've ever seen or read before in the fad diet, biohacking, fad fitness, fad health and wellness, fad everything new age industries. Once you read Patient Empowerment and Self-Care, you'll never think about your health or chronic illness the same ever again. You can get a free copy of my Patient Empowerment and Self-Care Manifesto and ask me questions directly twice a month on my Ask Me Anything coaching calls when you take a trial membership to my private community, the Nix Institute for Self-Healing and Integration. The link is in the description. Well, because when you zoom in on tiny parts of physical matter, like cells, like molecules inside the body, what you lose is the context of what's going on around, right? Like you can focus in on one tiny area of the body, but when you do that, right, you're ignoring everything that's going on around that area of the body and how this tissue over here or this organ over here is influencing that part of the body. And this thing over here is related to this. And what happens here has an effect down here. And so the important thing about chronic illness is it's multifactorial. Zooming in on one portion or one tissue or one group of cells in the body actually leads to liabilities. And the biggest liability is if you use modern mainstream medical approaches for chronic conditions, you end up causing all kinds of collateral damage that we refer to very politely as side effects. It's not a side effect, it's a bad effect. It's a negative effect that results from treatment. The modern medical system cannot escape this. You cannot go to modern medicine and get treated in the conventional kind of medical therapies that they offer for most chronic conditions and not have side effects. Why? Because you're not taking into account enough of the different factors. This is what the ancient medical system does so well. This is what I share with people on all of my material, including my coaching calls and the various programs that I put together. All those links are in the description below this video. And so what I want to share with you in this video is an actual demonstration on screen of how you can make sense of your condition and go to the correct material for the correct solution for your specific imbalance at the moment that you have it. And when your condition changes, you can change the solutions that you're picking for your condition. And so here's how I want to do this. I'm going to share screen here. I think you can see my screen here. So I put together, let me just zoom over here. Don't worry about the terminology here. I explain what these terms mean. This is comes out of obviously Asian medical thinking. When you have a chronic condition, the first thing that you want to do is get clear on your specific symptoms. Now, this is not hard. Presumably, you live with yourself 24/7, and so whatever your symptoms are, you just go down a checklist of things that may be relevant to your specific imbalance. Now, these are not all symptoms that your doctor will be asking you about. This will not be something that you have brought up or talked to about with other people. The symptoms that are highlighted as drivers and indicators of the presence of a chronic condition are very often overlooked by mainstream medicine. Partly this is because they don't have answers for them, partly because, again, their medical logic does not consider this approach, which is based on organ imbalances. So right here, sighing. People who are very, very stressed, which is the most common pattern presenting with stress, would be liver depression or liver heat. Heat building up in the liver, where the heat, they say depression, it doesn't mean you're depressed psychologically or psychiatrically. What it means is the heat is stuck, it's trapped in that organ. And what it does is it causes a lot of symptoms of heat, but one of the ways that you get heat to move out of the liver is right? Big, deep breaths. I had a friend who used to do this all the time. And I laughed when he did it because he didn't know that I knew, that I could tell that one of his main patterns that was present was liver depression. So sighing, what's called plum pit sensation, that feeling that something is stuck in the esophagus. You try to swallow, but it feels like something's stuck in there, like the pit of a plum, right? This is how the ancients used to talk about it. What's called counterflow frigidity. Counterflow frigidity is heat is trapped in the middle of the body and it's not extending out to your limbs, right? Your hands and feet. That's counterflow. Your hands and feet are cold, but you're not cold overall. You have signs and symptoms of heat, especially in the upper part of the body, but you do not have heat in your hands and feet, right? Your hands and feet tend to be cold. That means the heat is trapped in the middle of the body. That's a classic sign of liver depression. Irritability, people flying off the handle. For women, usually, right, super emotional swings in the premenstruum, etc. For men, very often it's an expression of anger. Emotional outburst of one form or another. I said PMS in women, dysmenorrhea, painful breasts in the premenstruum, etc. The next most important pattern that we talk about, and I won't go through all of these, but just so you have a reference, a weakness in the spleen, a vacuity condition where the spleen is supposed to be full of something and it's not. Fatigue is the primary first thing to look at. If you're fatigued, your spleen is weak. It's a silver bullet symptom, we call that. Cold hands and nose, right? Very often you get a cold nose, right? Again, that has to do with the spleen not being able to send stuff, send the good mojo from the food that you're eating to the upper part of the body. This is well understood in ancient medicine. A tendency to lose stools. If the spleen is weak, you cannot digest everything completely. The spleen is like the fire of digestion in your gut, right? In your digestive system. If you put food into your digestive system and the fire of digestion is not strong enough, you tend to get loose stools. You pass half digested food out when you eliminate waste from your intestines. Orthostatic hypotension, this is another silver bullet symptom, right? That means dizziness when you stand up. That's what orthostatic hypotension is. You stand up and then you have that moment where you're kind of spaced out, right? And you get a little dizzy for a moment because the spleen is too weak. That is a sign of a weak spleen. And then the last one, this is also a silver bullet, cravings for sweets. Lots of people with chronic digestive illness develop cravings for sweets because this primary central organ, this organ that is so central to your digestive health, the spleen, is so weak that the only way to stimulate it into activity is to eat sweets. And the more sweets you eat, the more you overwhelm it, the more exhausted it becomes, the weaker it becomes, the more you have to crave more sugar to keep it going. And so this is what chronic illness looks like. You get locked into a situation where the worse things get, the more you have to do the bad things to stimulate the body to try to get it to do what you want it to do, right? This is why chronic illness becomes chronic. And so if you can go through, I won't go through all of these, but if you can run through a quick checklist of the various signs and symptoms. A sign is something that somebody could see from outside or that you could observe in the mirror. Oh, my tongue is red. Oh, my complexion is red and florid. A sign is something that can be observed from without by a third party, for example. A symptom is something that you experience and that you would have to report on to a physician. Oh, I feel hot at 2 a.m. Oh, I have pain in my abdomen. Well, we can't do a test to see if you have pain in your abdomen. You're reporting that you have pain in your abdomen, et cetera, okay? So signs and symptoms, if you can run through a list of signs and symptoms, you can figure out pretty quickly which of your imbalances are the worst. And then we treat, and this is the key to the ancient medical system. We are going to treat your condition in the material that I've put together for you. I say we. You are going to treat your condition based on your pattern of organ imbalance. Why is this important? Why does this matter? Simple, right? There are different kinds of each disease. If you have a named disease, let's use acid reflux because I talk about that a lot on this channel. If you have acid reflux, you do not have every kind of acid reflux that could possibly be had or the same acid reflux as every other person with acid reflux. You have a specific imbalance leading to the disease diagnosis called acid reflux. But you probably don't have the same type of acid reflux that every other person with acid reflux has. I talk about this in a different video, and the example I gave is there is a scenario in which an 18-year-old stud male athlete develops acid reflux. But that person does not have the same underlying disease mechanisms, the same organ imbalances as a 65-year-old female who happens to be overweight and largely leads a sedentary lifestyle. That's not possible. You can't have two people, right, with radically different age, gender, body type, physical activity, daily habits, etc., cannot possibly suffer from the same imbalances. You don't need to be a medical expert to figure that out. That's just common, logical kind of common sense that says, wait a second, like there's something different about a 65-year-old overweight female who doesn't really move around very much and an 18-year-old stud athlete who's working out maybe and going to athletic training and practicing every day, right, and pushing hard for competition, et cetera, et cetera. Those people do not have the same things going on. It's not possible, right? One of them has, let's say, heat with dryness, and the other one has a cold, vacuous, damp spleen with lots of mucus building up in the body. Those are completely different mechanisms. And the same basic principle, the same example could be used also for any other digestive or chronic type illness, whether that's IBS, Crohn's disease, colitis, diverticulitis, right? You name it on down the line, any kind of chronic illness, especially chronic digestive illness, will exhibit these different patterns of organ imbalance. How do you know which pattern of organ imbalance you have? Like I already said, you go through a checklist of signs and symptoms to determine which of your patterns is primary. In other words, you're probably not going to have one pattern. Nobody has one pattern. In chronic illness, you're going to have multiple patterns going on. But the issue here is which one is the most important for you right now, today, at this hour, so that you're choosing and selecting foods and taking the kind of actions in terms of your behavior and your non-dietary tips and tricks that I give you as solutions for your condition. What of those specific solutions apply to your pattern of illness, not your disease, but your pattern of imbalance? If you treat the patterns of your organ imbalance, what you find is your body has tremendous, tremendous ability to heal on its own. So how do we do that? Well, if we had to treat this particular pattern, liver depression, what I refer to in my material as heat in the liver, right? A heat condition, all heat conditions have something to do with the liver. I put together this matrix, you can see it here, okay? The essential symptoms are highlighted in red: irritability and what's called a bowstring pulse. Don't worry about the pulse right now. We're not talking about pulse diagnosis. But rib side pain, these would be secondary in yellow. These are suggestive of if you had rib side pain, if you had PMS as a woman, if you had plum pit chi, those would all be very suggestive of heat in the liver. But these two, irritability and a bowstring pulse, are absolutely silver bullet. If you have them, you have this pattern, okay? And then I made a column. If you see this pattern, right, if you see heat in the liver, you should also consider that you probably have these possible patterns, because these patterns very often show up together. You don't have one pattern, right? Heat in the liver will cause problems in other parts of the body, like stomach heat, like depressive heat, it's called, which is just a further worsening of, a further exacerbation of heat in the liver. Spleen vacuity, I talked about already. We're going to focus on these two primary patterns that appear. These two patterns are the patterns that appear in all chronic illness. Heat in the liver, weakness in the spleen. This is the core imbalance that underpins all chronic illness. I don't care where you are, I don't care what your condition. If you have a chronic illness, which is 3 to 6 months or longer, you've had symptoms, you have a hot liver, you have a weak spleen, period, right? I know this for a fact, okay? And the question is, how bad is it? What else is going on, etc. And then in this matrix goes along with the material that I created for the Nix Institute for Self-Healing and Integration. This is some of the very best stuff. I tried to put together all the best stuff that I could possibly share with regular folks on how to heal chronic illness on their own. I put it all together in the Nix Institute for Self-Healing and Integration. It comes with a copy of the Patient Empowerment and Self-Care Manifesto. I've talked about this in other videos. I'll just show it to you here. Okay, it's about 110 pages of just rock solid actionable advice, and it refers back to this material here where, now if you want to deal with this pattern, right, liver depression, i.e. heat in the liver, what's known in the textbook as liver depression, I gave you the chapters in the book here to deal with that, and also, here's a table of contents, okay? Chapter 1, Chapter 2, Chapter 9, Chapter 20, Chapter 30, Chapter 37, talking about tinctures, etc. So I gave you a way to refer in the book to the various things that I'm going to share with you, and also the title of these also refers to and leads you back to the membership area, where you can now go through and look at, here's one on, for example, green tea. I talk about green tea as the primary treatment for phlegm and dampness. If you have mucus, dampness is what's referred to as too much fluid building up in the body, which you first experience as mucus, usually post-nasal drip, right? Like in the back of your throat, dripping down. Oh my goodness, I'm so full of mucus right now. That's dampness showing up in the body. The primary patterns treated, okay? Dampness, phlegm in the body. Phlegm is a subset of dampness. It is a type of dampness. It is specific to the upper portion of the body especially, and it has specific symptoms that I go into in the matrix here, phlegm and dampness, okay? And here's the list of signs and symptoms for phlegm and dampness. And then you can refer to the solutions inside the material. Green tea, preparation, videos 8 minutes, dampness, phlegm, spleen vacuity. Okay, green tea is by far the best choice for managing. Obviously, a lot of dampness is related to weight gain, so you can treat weight loss. The primary treatment for losing weight in Asia is green tea, crazily enough. If you understand how to use it, you can actually use it to get phlegm and dampness out of the body, which will cause weight loss. You have to know how to use it, so I sort of show you, like, don't overdo it, right? Anything that's strong enough to help you is strong enough to make you ill as well, and so you can't overdo green tea. There's a limit to what you can get out of this. But if you understand how to stop the production of phlegm and dampness in your body, and you have green tea to help drain it out of your body, well, you have tremendous leg up on not just controlling your weight, but getting rid of damp conditions. Damp diseases produce things like head fog, joint pain, whole body pain, right? In the case of fibromyalgia, that's a whole body dampness kind of condition. It mostly affects women. You see women who get overweight and then their whole body starts to ache, right? That's dampness that makes the muscles and the joints and all the tissues start to not just get inflamed, but all that dampness takes up space. And so it makes the body very heavy. You get very tired. The more fatigued you get, the more exhausted you get, the more the body hurts, right? Et cetera, et cetera. And so this is how I've set up this material. This gives you a great reference, medicinal porridge, right? Baked vegetables, all the various things that I can share with you on how to treat your specific chronic illness according to patterns of signs and symptoms, organ imbalance, patterns of organ imbalance. Okay? And so again, with phlegm and dampness, here you see the chapter on green tea. You can massage the body in a specific way. The various solutions that I make available for you all can be referenced inside the matrix, and the matrix can be found on the homepage right here. This matrix, Patient Empowerment and Self-Care Matrix, is what I've put together for you right here. So I hope some of that makes sense. I think it does. If you need to go back and watch the video again, please do. But what I've tried to do is to bring forth a very simple system that makes the most out of the ancient medical approach that I discovered now over 25 years ago, as I'm recording this, in the highlands of Guatemala, where I lived on and off for a decade and a half, and then I still maintain my property there, and so I've been back multiple times in the last 25 years to see friends and enjoy the beautiful, my mountain home on a beautiful lake in Central America, Lake Atitlan. And the secrets that I learned about managing and recovering from chronic illness are so valuable, they're so important, literally everybody should know this. I don't know of a person, even if you're not ill, you still need to know how the body breaks down and how ancient medicine, especially how the body breaks down when you have a chronic illness, but then how ancient medical approaches have huge, huge advantages over the modern medical system when it comes to treating and recovering from chronic illness, for reasons that I go into in all of my material, but that, right, to summarize, that essentially this material and this medical approach gives you, the patient, the power to treat and manage and control and recover from your chronic condition on your own, without doctors, without, right? Now, if you're sick and you have an emergency, get to a doctor. I'm not taking the place of mainstream medicine. What I'm saying here is that if you have a chronic condition and you've been to a doctor and you've taken the medications that they prescribe for you and you've gone through all the tests and you've done everything that you're treating it the wrong way. Most people can get results from this ancient approach who cannot get results from mainstream medicine, precisely because what we're using here is the one thing that the mainstream medical system refuses to acknowledge, that they don't know how to work with this. They refuse to actually leverage the power of this thing. I'm talking about your body's own healing reflex. Your body has a built-in healing system. It's by far the best medicine that's ever been developed, right, by God or man. And in this case, right, what you want to do is learn how to manage your insides, learn how to control your inner environment in such a way that you have the power to trigger your body's healing response and then to guide it and navigate your body, right? Like if you have a hot condition that involves heat and dryness, you don't want to eat foods or do things that make heat and dryness worse. You want to know the solutions that help get heat out of the liver and moisten dryness in your intestines. Well, that's really easy to do. I show you how to do that. Those are the kind of simple things that you can do on a day-to-day basis where hour by hour your condition improves. And when something goes wrong, you know it because you know how to track and pay attention to the important symptoms that constitute your patterns of imbalance. And once you get a little bit of a familiarity with this approach, with this ancient medical approach, things make sense again. Your body makes sense. Cause and effect start to match up. So chronic illness is not like this terrible nightmare of anxiety and not knowing and uncertainty about like what is causing this? Why is my body freaking out? Why do I have this reaction, right? What's going on that my symptoms keep flaring up and all the rest? No, a lot of those questions become really, really clear. And when they become clear and when you develop a mental picture of what's happening inside your body with real clarity, where you're like, oh, this causes that. Therefore, I can change my behavior, I can change my food combinations, and I can eat things that help my spleen recover or get dampness out of the body or get heat out of the liver or moisten the intestines. Whatever your specific pattern may be, you're targeting your particular imbalances all the way down the line. And this is the key point, because again, when I say the ancient medical approach has advantages, it's like it has no end of advantages, right? With mainstream medicine, it's like, okay, you have acid reflux, you went to the doctor 20 years ago and you're still taking the same pill for 20 years. It's like, but you're not the same as 20 years ago. Your condition is not the same. Even if it was a good idea to block stomach acid because your doctor told you and gave you a pill to take for 20 years, obviously that can't be true that your condition hasn't altered one iota in 20 years. Your body's changing every day. So you have to know how to change your solutions as your condition starts to morph and evolve, right? Once you apply certain solutions, your condition is going to change. Well, you can't apply the same conditions, right? If your condition changes, the solutions that you're going to now apply to your new condition have to reflect what that new condition is. And the way you do that is to review and go back through your symptoms and discover your new pattern now that your condition has changed. Oh, heat is not the dominant problem. Now it's dampness and spleen vacuity. Let's treat that. Oh, now spleen vacuity is fine, or it's better, and dampness is not a problem. Now we got to treat dryness in the intestines. Let's treat that. So you can go and target at any given moment exactly what is going on with your condition and not run around like a chicken with your head cut off, or even worse, right? What most people end up doing is just blindly following some medical doctor's advice who has no real understanding of how to cure chronic illness either. Your doctor belongs to a medical system that wants to monetize as many people with chronic illness as possible. They have no incentive for you to get well from your chronic illness. They want to make sure that you keep coming back. That's just a reality. That's not a cynical statement. The financial incentives within the modern mainstream medical system are completely contrary to patients getting well. The mainstream medical education system is not set up for doctors to learn about ancient healing techniques. That's not what they do, right? The whole medical establishment would collapse if patients started healing on their own, which is what I teach you here. So if you have comments, if you have a condition, put it in the comments section below this video. I want to hear from you. If any of this makes sense, or if you have questions, by all means, get in touch with me. My contact information is in the description. And if you're interested in signing up and becoming a member of the Nix Institute for Self-Healing and Integration, that's exactly why I do these videos. You can join that as well. And you get to talk to me twice a month. I do Ask Me Anything calls. I help guide you through the material. I teach you how to target your symptoms and help you apply the solutions that you need right now at this moment to get to the next level. And when your condition changes, we'll talk again, and then you can apply some new things. But once you master this system, you not only get your health back, you have a skill set that you can use for the remainder of your life and that you can share with your loved ones. I've taught this to a lot of moms who then share it with their kids, et cetera, et cetera. The good news is it's very easy to understand all of it. I've written it at about a 7th grade level. I've taught this to children as young as 12 years old. And like I said, I teach it to parents who then share it and use this information to help their young children, who very often, right, if you have a child that like starts off life with a bad illness, obviously it's a nightmare as a parent. But this information is so easy to understand and apply that, again, my mission is to make it available to everybody because, quite frankly, everybody in the world needs to know this. So that's what I have for this video. Thanks very much for watching. And remember, your body knows how to heal on its own. Your job, and what I'm teaching you here on this channel and in all of my material, is to control your inner environment in such a way that your body does what it's designed to do, which is heal by itself, using its own self-healing, built-in self-healing reflex. Okay, thanks very much. Thanks for watching. I'll be back with more great stuff.